Once again, and we look forward to an eventful time over the next 2 days as we together prepare Africa for the fourth industrial revolution. I thank you.
Can we give Kwame another round of applause? So I'm here to give a few housekeeping rules or engagement for the speakers. If you have a PowerPoint presentation, this is the only podium that will allow you to make your presentation. There's a timer here, so if you have 45 slides, make sure you check how much time has been allocated to you and disrupt your own presentation. Otherwise, we will disrupt the microphone. 2 is that we will try as much as possible to see how much time we can cover and regain in order for us to be on track. And so for the presenters, we will kindly request you that when we come to you and say, disrupt a little bit, bear with us. That's what we're supposed to do. And then finally, you all, the presenters will have a pointer, so no need of alerting next. You have the power to next or to go back in your hands. And so I thought I would make those clear because everybody, we don't want to make assumptions here. So with that, let's go into the first session of our presentations. And like I said, please be mindful of the time. We will have more opportunity for us to have the conversations in the breakout sessions and the panel sessions. I am Michael Niyitejeka, happy to facilitate day one again for this conference and looking forward to fruitful conversation as we dive.
Thank you very much, Michael. Karibuni nyote. I know we have people who have traveled all the way from Tanzania, all the way from across the continent and the globe. You're all welcome to this Africa blockchain conference. Now, we all have heard about the first, the second, and the third revolution. They all disrupted or influenced our lives in different ways and in different spheres. And then, boom, comes another one. But how prepared are we as Uganda, as Africa? And that's where the next presentation is going to point. Africa's journey through history from the first, second, third, and now the fourth revolution. Please join me in welcoming the chairman, Ubuntu Group, and that is Mr. Mahmoudou Toure. He's giving us the next presentation.
Where do I point? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's an honor and a pleasure for me to be here with you today. And I think for this very fundamental topic, that is the fourth industrial revolution. For me, it's the best opportunity the continent has had since the Egyptian Empire. And I'll take you through this journey and explain to you why. Just a few words around Ubuntu and Ubuntu Coin. Ubuntu Coin stands for a new era in economic consciousness. Ubuntu Coin is the gold-backed digital currency promoting shared prosperity and human advancements underpinned by interconnectedness and wealth creation. Why Ubuntu? Ubuntu is an African concept meaning I am because we are. Our core values are human interdependence and the understanding that everything exists only in relationship to everything else. So, Ubuntu is a word that you find in Southern Africa first, Zimbabwe, South Africa. You also find Ubuntu in places like Rwanda, where they say Umubuntu. And you find the same word or equivalent in Central Africa with Abantu, the Bantus. So Ubuntu means humanity. And it's very important, this concept of humanity, as we enter in the fourth industrial revolution, because that's really what's going to be challenged, questioned, redefined. That's why we chose this name, this African name. It's also an opportunity for Africa to let its genius reveal. And I'll use this quote from Steve Jobs. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify them, or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them. Because they change things, they push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy one, we see genius. Because the ones who are crazy enough to change, to think they can change the world are the ones who do. Now, it's interesting. I landed yesterday in Entebbe Airport, and one of the key staff of the organizing team was waiting for me at the airport. And the first thing he asked me, because he saw the name Toure, so he thought he was collecting Yaya Toure or Kolo Toure, for those who know football, right? And I kind of felt sorry because I could see the disappointment on his face when I say, actually, no, it's not me, but we're related somehow. And he said, how are you related? So I explained to him, the name Toure actually is shared across most of West Africa and part of Central Africa. I'm from Cameroon. And my great-great-grandfather was Samori Toure. And he built the Wasulu Empire. And in each new kingdom that he would conquer, he would put one of his sons. And that's why you have so many Toures all across. So next time you see a Toure, it might not be Yaya Toure or Kolo Toure, but it's somehow related. But it shows also how that it's important to know our history as Africans. And as we enter this fourth industrial revolution, it's important also to know what was Africa's contribution in science advancement in history. First, did you know that geometry was actually invented in Africa, actually not too far from this place? Why? Because the Egyptian at the time and the Nubians, which is older Sudan, because of the Nile rising, they needed to redefine the land, and that's how they created geometry. Did you know, for instance, that in Mali, they could position the Sirius star and constellations many, many millennia ago using ancient astronomy? Did you know that the first heart transplant was actually done in Africa a few decades ago? As you enter the fourth industrial revolution, it's critical that you know what has been Africa's contribution to the universal human history. So we should know our history from Egypt to Wakanda. As I've been asked to talk about this industrial revolution, it's important to understand what are the three key factors that have determined industrial revolution. You had the first one in the 18th century, you had the second one in the 19th, late 19th, fourth one mid-20th century. All of them had three key factors. Shift in energy. The first industrial revolution got steam turbine as the key driver. The second one had oil, gas. The third one in the 50s was linked to nuclear energy. The fourth one we're getting into is linked to renewable distributed energy. The second element that is very critical to industrial revolution is a shift or disruption in terms of telecommunications. Printing in the mid-18th, second revolution was telegraph. Third was linked to internet. Now, as we enter the fourth industrial revolution, what are going to be the three key drivers? Right now, at this point, you do have a new kind of internet that is coming in. We're all connected, we're all related. You do have renewable energy. And I forgot transportation, what has been also a shift. Now, when you had the train in the second industrial revolution, the locomotive, if I may, and then you had the plane as a means of transport, the fourth industrial revolution will probably have drones and space. As we do this, let's look at what's in for Africa. How do we get to Wakanda? How do we build this? It's going to require a few things. First, the right level of education. But now with internet, you have access to a multitude of amount of knowledge in the palm of your hands with 80% mobile telecommunications. With 3D printing, you won't need to be an expert in a factory. With transportation, as it goes, roads will still be important, but you can leapfrog using drones to transport goods. And this is essential. So we have a very unique opportunity to shift as a continent, as a people. And we do have the people. By 2050, there will be 2 billion Africans, and 7 out of 10 youth in the world will be African. And this is quite critical when you want to build an industrial revolution. We have the market, we have 60% of the arable land. And as we do that, we should enter this journey putting one key element in the middle, which is blockchain. Why is blockchain critical? Because it actually goes back using an old African principle, which is the principle of consensus. What does that mean? Maybe we did invent blockchain in our own way. How? Think of land. So before colonization, the way we would validate that a land belongs to someone in a safe and secure, immutable way was not to go to the mayor. You would call a few people in the village, the wise men, the elders, to validate, 4 or 5 of them, to validate that this piece of land is yours. And if ever there would be a dispute on your land, they would look at least for 2 or 3 of the elders in the village to come and confirm. It's the same when a child would be born. Now, what does it change for us? The concept of decentralization. As you could see, the main challenge that we've had during the colonization phase is that everything went back to be centralized. Entity and we handed over our power to a central entity led to what we know has been a major issue. To what in we know has been a major issue in African history at this point. blockchain has a very unique opportunity to give power back in the hand of the people. Not only to give power back in the hand of the people. Not only because, yes, you can effectively make transactions now in a safe and secured way without without trusting or relying on a central party. But also, what it does, which is absolutely critical, think of decentralized autonomous organizations. Think of validating diplomas, etc. We do have a very, very unique opportunity today to kind of move to the next level. Now, when you talk about blockchain in particular, and going back to Wakanda, I don't know what's going on with the screen. And by the way, I was supposed to have 20 minutes. It just says 15 here, so please take note of that. Thank you. So I wanted to show you this chart. It's quite important, and it will show you why is it possible for Africa to leapfrog. We leapfrog fixed line by going straight to mobile phones. Now, if you look at this chart and the probability and the possibility for us to actually make the fourth industrial revolution happen shows you this is the technology adoption of key inventions that came out over the past century and the time it took to go mainstream. So if you take the vacuum cleaner, it took roughly 40 years. If you take the refrigerator, it took roughly 50, 60 years. But now, if you take mobile phones, if you take tablets, for them to go mainstream, it takes a couple of years. So, yes, now that information is readily available in the hands of everyone, and now that technology can be mainstream and widespread in the blink of an eye, we do have a very unique opportunity, not only to enter the fourth industrial revolution, but to lead it. So Kwame earlier was talking about AI, biotechnologies, etc. We are a bit at a crossroads, right? Is that technology is moving faster than human brain. How are we going to handle this? The key thing will be to go back to some fundamental principles and values. And as you can see, the rest of the world is scrambling for Africa. Why? Because of the resources, because of the potential, because of the market. And in a world where big data is becoming essential, who will have the most data or the most source of data on the planet in the next 20 years? If you remember my comments, of course it's going to be Africa if we're going to be 2 billion in the next 20 plus years. Now, what do we do with those data? How do we handle them? That's where consciousness and core values come into play. And I think if you think of the example that blockchain somehow the fundamental principles are found in old African ancestry and practices, it will be very critical that those values, we go back to those ancestral values and understand what makes us human so that we don't become robots. And in that quest, Africa has a fundamental role to play because it will be about humanity at the end of the day. And how do we make humans to be the leaders and not the products of the fourth industrial revolution? I'll leave you with this question. As we were talking about Wakanda earlier, what will it take to actually get there? It's going to take money, right? Now, where are we getting the money from? Right? Africa is poor. I mean, that's what they say. But we all know Africa is rich. Africa is actually wealthy. Why? because we have natural resources. That's why there's a scramble. Now, we do have natural resources, but we sell them and then we get paper that depreciates. Maybe that's what makes us poor. But at the same time, we need to trade those natural resources. And guess what? Here comes blockchain. What if we make those natural resources a currency? This is the journey Ubuntu group and Ubuntu coin is getting into. And what problem are we trying to solve? Three major problems. Financial inclusion and wealth creation are restricted. 4 billion people don't have access to a bank account. In the US, 52% of the people basically don't have access directly or indirectly to the stock markets. Why? Because they live from paycheck to paycheck. So poverty or limitations are not just an African problem, it's a global problem. And our journey is to address that. Also, the banking principles are quite cumbersome, and the global economies and currencies are globally unstable. If you look at this chart, you can see the purchasing power versus gold. In 1971, 180 ounces of gold will get you a Cadillac. In 2009, the same ounce of gold will get you 2 cars and a better Cadillac. So you do the math? Okay. Basically, how do we get there? How do we do it? So I don't know where I should point this side. The mechanism is simple. If we want to make our natural resources a currency, very simple. You invest in fiat. We fund sustainable mining and responsible mining based on a fair trade. Out of that gold, we refine, we place it in vault, we tokenize it. And on your palm of your hand, you now have a currency you can trade with. And why did we start with gold? It's the precious metal that is accepted everywhere in the world. Suddenly, you don't have a credit card? No worries. Get an Ubuntu coin. You want to buy online? You buy it with your Ubuntu coin. You're buying with gold. It changes everything. Cross-border between Ugandan shillings and Kenyan shillings, complicated, 10% cut. Why don't you just trade with Ubuntu coin, gold back? And we start with gold, and then we continue with platinum, with other resources. That's how you build Wakanda, by going back to the source, by going back to what Mother Nature has provided this gifted land. Ultimately, we aim at providing gold for all. We have one of the best high-tech performance, more than 50,000 transactions per second. And we can lift people out of poverty by providing a real resource to trade with. And we build a community out of that, based on a social media platform that is called Tribe One, where we can all interact, create our own e-commerce, and start trading, selling, and access knowledge. Think of telemedicine. Liberia, 53 doctors for 1.2 million people. How are they going to cope? Telemedicine. But if the doctors are abroad or next door, are you going to pay them with the Liberian money? No. They can use Ucoin for that. That's how you merge and bring Africa into the new world and get Africa to lead the 4th industrial generation. I am because we are. And I'll leave you with those African words and this proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Toure. Now you know, having had Africa's journey through the 1st to the 4th revolution, industrial revolution, now you know where you stand. Someone was asking me, why it is important for us to understand this blockchain business. And earlier on, I was talking to a lady there. She said she is an auditor, she's a medical doctor, and she finds herself interfacing with blockchain technology. So there's no way you can run away from blockchain. Just embrace it. Our next speaker is Mohit Davar. He is the co-founder, Huobi Mena, United Arab Emirates. Please welcome with me, Mr. Davar.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. My name is Mohit Davar. I'm the co-founder of Huobi Mena. Just before I start, maybe with show of hands, I can just sort of ask you, how many people have heard of Huobi? Okay. I will go through the presentation because I thought if you all knew, I can just go to Q&A. But that's not the case. So hopefully more of you will know after this. So let me see if I can. Where would you like me to point this? I saw the previous speaker. There we go. Right. So Huobi is basically a digital asset exchange. We are almost 6 years old. Started by a gentleman called Leon Lee, head office out of Beijing, where most of our resources are between Beijing and Hainan, so China, and then we have presence sort of around the world as well. Roughly over 6 million customers on our platform, about 1,300 staff globally, of most of which are in the tech, because we're effectively a tech company providing a secure platform for our customers to trade digital assets. You can see that it's been growing pretty well over the last 6 years, and actually last June, we set a big 24-hour trading record of $21 billion, which was a combination of our spot and derivatives trading. So that's the, on a map, wow, you really are trying to cut me short. Where would you like me to point this thing to go back? Right, that's, sorry, okay, we're starting again. Is it better to go manual? Should I just tell you to go to the next slide? All right, that one, over there. Right, great. So as I was saying, every presentation should have a map, so that's our map, that's where we are. As I said, we're headquartered in Beijing. We have presence in the US and across various parts of Asia. Huobi Mena, which I'll talk about a bit more, we're based out of Dubai. And then, of course, we have our colleagues in London and Japan and Korea as well. Let's talk about the Huobi ecosystem. While at the center of everything we do is the digital asset exchange, actually it's been Huobi's mandate from day one to promote the entire blockchain ecosystem. So we see that as a critical part of actually focusing on the exchange. So within Huobi, as you can see, we have a Huobi Capital, which acts basically like a PE fund investing in various blockchain projects. We have an Huobi Eco Fund that's very targeted with a long-term vision of growing the ecosystem. We have a Huobi Research Lab, an Innovation Lab, Training and Research Center. So various parts of Huobi are dedicated to basically working. This is not just all internal, but also working with companies. Hopefully, some of them are here too, to grow the wider blockchain ecosystem. Central to what we do, of course, is the digital asset exchange. We have roughly 250 tokens listed on our exchange, so just over 400 pairs. We obviously have an OTC platform, or OTC marketplace as part of our platform. And now we have, you may have sort of seen in the social media, a lot of promotion around Prime and Fast Track, where we're really trying to bring some great projects onto the platform. And then we also have derivatives trading as well. I come from a very regulated background. I've spent 25 years in payments, and I firmly believe that a balanced, regulated environment is really good for this industry, and we embrace regulation. We work very closely with regulators. Currently, we're regulated, licensed in those jurisdictions, in the US, in Japan, and Gibraltar, and also through DMCC in the UAE. And then there is a whole host of licenses and registrations in the pipeline. So I was very encouraged when the first speaker talked about what the initiatives were happening in Uganda, because that's exactly what we also believe in. So Huobi Mena is basically part of Huobi Group. It's something that I founded in UAE, co-founded in UAE and Dubai. It was basically set up as a subsidiary of the Huobi Group to get closer to the customer. So we focus on Middle East, Africa, Turkey, and Israel. That's the territory that this particular subsidiary deals with. And it's basically our intention is to get closer to the regulators, closer to the decision makers, closer to our customers. And as you know, Huobi is primarily a token-to-token trading, but we're obviously moving to a fiat-to-token gateway wherever we can have that. And that is a key part of why we set up this company in Dubai. We've already put resources, as you can see on the ground, in Egypt, Turkey, Nigeria. We had a big launch in Turkey that some of you may have read about last week, and clearly we will continue down that path in more and more jurisdictions. What is our approach? Our approach is fundamentally one of partnership, and this is what I really want to stress to all of you here, which is we need to develop the ecosystem together. So we basically white label our platform for people who want to take the platform, take Huobi's liquidity, Huobi's tokens. We offer that to institutional clients, to other crypto exchanges, to traders. We want to work with companies that have a great proposition and see how we can list you and your token onto our exchanges. So it's very much a partnership approach that we want to have pretty much in all the territories that we operate in. We've also introduced a very aggressive pricing structure that you may have picked up through use of HT, which is our own local token on the platform. This is the good-looking team that Huobi Mena has. Some of them are here, and we plan to be here both days. We have also a stand somewhere down there in the marquee. So please do get in touch with us. These are the various social media channels you can reach us on, and we would love to sort of meet most of you, all of you, over the next 2 days and see how we can maybe work together. Thank you very much. I saved you 2 minutes.
Right after the first blockchain conference, I walked into the banking hall, and one of the managers pulled me aside and asked me, "Michael, the things you are talking about." I said, "Which ones?" "This Bitcoin, coin, and block." "What?" I said, "Yeah, the chain." He says, "Yes." "Are we safe?" I said, "You as who?" He says, "Me as the bank." So the lady looked quite frightened, and I asked her, I said, "So what is your major concern?" Now, for the people that have visited Uganda, the best way I can express it is in the language she used. So ask for a translator. She says, mugenda biteeka ku internet kati fe tunaabeera tutya. And I looked at her, I could sense desperation. I could sense that this blockchain and the convolution of blockchain and Bitcoin was even more complicated. And so I tried to explain to her that blockchain is slightly different from Bitcoin. So where is your major worry? She said, where the money is. And I could sense trouble. So there are some of you who are seated here, and you are looking for the answer. Do I have a job in the next 5 years? And I can say it's going to require you to reskill, upskill, and become compliant. Because the coins are here, and everything else that we are thinking about is going to happen. So ladies and gentlemen, can we be on our feet to receive our chief guest with the Right Honorable Prime Minister, the President of Sierra Leone is here. Your Excellency, the President of Sierra Leone, we welcome you to Uganda and we thank you for honoring us. So we'll be playing the anthems, Uganda and then Sierra Leone. So can we have the national anthems in that order? The anthem for Sierra Leone. We may take our seats. So, Your Excellency, Julius Maada Bio, the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, we welcome you to Uganda. The honorable ministers here present and the visiting delegation from Sierra Leone, welcome to the second Africa Blockchain Conference. You arrived at a time when we've had two presentations. We are going to have one last one, and then we're going to the formalities of the event having you in our presence. Allow me to invite Professor Charles Kwesiga to come and speak to us. And right after that, I would invite the chair of the conference, Kwame Rugunda, to come and speak to us as well. Allow me also to recognize the presence of the former Prime Minister, Right Honorable Amama Mbabazi. Thank you very much for gracing this occasion. Professor Kwesiga, you will disrupt your time, but I hope you bear with us.
Thanks very much, MC. It is indeed an honor, a pleasure to address you this morning. It's particularly a great honor to have Right Honorable Prime Minister, Right Honorable former Prime Minister, President of Sierra Leone, and other friends. I'm glad to be here to reveal the best kept secret in Uganda, and that is Uganda Industrial Research Institute. How many my earlier speakers asked how many of you had heard of his company. I didn't see many hands come up. I'm tempted to ask how many of you know about Uganda Industrial Research Institute. All right, hey, my boss is here. Okay, I see very few of you do. So what is Uganda Industrial Research Institute? But before I talk about the subject, I want to say Uganda Industrial Research Institute has a mission to catalyze the socio-economic transformation of Uganda and the region through enhanced technology use and scientific inquiry that leads to innovations. That is our mission. Our vision is to be a model institution in applied research and technology sourcing as vehicles for incubating industry and pioneer self-financing R&D. If we develop capacity like fellow research institutes globally, we should be able to be self-financing. And that's the way to go. It is a bit disturbing for me to be every year, we have one year cycle of our budgeting process, to be begging for financial support. Other institutions, and I know very well because at one time I was elected president of research institutions globally, an association called WITRO. And some of my members, like Danish Technological Institute, gives money, pays the government instead of receiving a budget. Why? Because they have capacity to do contract research, and that is my vision. I hope we'll get there. Industrialization that we're trying to catalyze is simply a process of transforming raw materials into finished products. But efficiency is the essence of industrialization. That's why we are talking blockchains. What do blockchains do? They improve and enhance efficiency of operations, simply put. But it is through technology use. Uganda Industrial Research Institute has identified or continue to focus on factors that make industry work. That is appropriate technologies, human capital, and affordable financing. As sub-Saharan Africa, we are missing out on all three. The financial infrastructure is not providing affordable financing for industry to happen. Our way of delivering skills is still wanting. We have people with certificates as technology surveyors, technology trained people, but certificates without skills. Appropriate technology, we are decidedly a third world country. We must improve on that. See, that's our technology. Now, back to stages of development. One way to cut through this is to understand that from the days of the hunters and gatherers, humanity moved towards subsistence farming. Soon after that, the Industrial Revolution started. That's when we mechanized agriculture, far back in 1784. Then the era of industrialization followed, and now we are moving into the technology-driven knowledge economy. The question is, where do we stand along this continuum? I hear a very disturbing statistic that a significant number of our farmers are still subsistence farmers. Cut differently, and the first speaker was, Ture was very elaborate on this. The industrial revolutions start with the first one of 1784, where mechanization, after the invention of the steam engine, then the mechanization of agriculture, water power, steam power, and so on. By 1870, the industrialization had metamorphosed into a second industrial revolution, where we started mass production, assembly line production, electricity. Now, let me elaborate a little more about this assembly line production. We have a situation where you can buy very nice furniture from our Juakali people, but find a table that has all legs of the same length is a challenge. You always have to find something to anchor one of the legs. Why? Because of lack of assembly line approach to production. And so we have to follow the trends. The third industrial revolution comprised of computer and automation. And now we are into cyber physical systems. That is what we are talking about today. Again, same question. Where do we stand along this revolution? When we talk about mechanizing agriculture in 1784, Then we move to my neighborhood where I grew up. We are still beholden to the hand hoe. We are so far behind, ladies and gentlemen. We must improve. Unfortunately, there is no audio to follow that clip, but I can find a way to put it on the website, because this is a very fundamental story about hope. In 1987, the late Lee Kuan Yew talked about the difference between the different economies, the different worlds. And he said, yeah, if you ask me to characterize the states of economies, I can be forced to explain it this way, that when we are very different. The first world, the fourth world, very different. And he cites Uganda as an example. He says, I meet a lot of leaders from all countries. But when I meet a president of Uganda, this is 1987, when I meet a president of Uganda, I know I'm meeting someone whose economy has collapsed and may not be put together for another 100 years. I wish he was alive to see how wrong he was. It is a story of hope. Here we are, less than 32 years later, talking about blockchains in Kampala. So what we do as Uganda Industrial Research Institute is to understand the pillars of industrialization and understand that for industry to happen, we must have appropriate technologies, we must have human capital, and we must have affordable financing. That way, we can meet the market demands. Minus any of the three, you are not going anywhere. And so, Uganda Industrial Research Institute is proud to address the two of the three, and that is appropriate technologies and human capital. I hope our colleagues in the financial world will play their role to give us a financial infrastructure that can make industry happen. You cannot borrow money at 20% interest and expect to build an industry, not even a Juakari industry. Technology use. Back in June 1980, on 15th, I had a multiple celebration. I was getting a master's degree in industrial engineering. It was my birthday, and it was Father's Day. So my family was really had to work very hard to please me 3 times. But the most cherished memory of that day is that picture, which I took in an engineering workshop that I was using to teach material science processing in a university in America. What I want you to take note of is the machinery at the university used to deliver skills, engineering skills. When you come around, we are talking about blockchains, all right, but how many industries do you know in our neighborhood that have that kind of sophisticated machinery? We really have to move fast. What I want to leave with you is that we must have coherent and appropriate industrial policies. That's what has made the world of industry move. We must adopt the value chain approach. Don't be all over the place. I see people who is an agriculturist or he's a farmer, he wants to be a processor, he wants to be a marketer. You can't have skills in all those things. The value chain approach says, do the best you can do as a farmer, then somebody else can do the best they can do to process as a processor, and then a marketer. But as we know, a chain is as strong as its weakest link. Along that value chain, any weakness that is manifested along the chain, it breaks the chain. We must plan according to the local circumstances. While we understand what the rest of the world does, yes, we can adapt their global best practices, but adapt them to the local situation. We must aim for the stars. And we have to understand and adapt the global trends and strive to develop and engage local capital and local resources. We need to create and maintain a social political environment that assures industrialization. I had this whole morning, last night, I was debating with myself whether to present a paper or just a few slides. And so I'll do both by saying that I'll put the paper on the website of the organizers, and I'll be happy to address any other issues. I'll also encourage you to get in touch with us, and those who are around Kampala, or wherever you are from, take a time to come and visit an initiative that was launched by Right Honorable Prime Minister last year on January 25th, 2018, where we are building a modern era manufacturing facility. It's being implemented by Uganda Industrial Research Institute, sponsored by Chinese government at a $30 million grant, where we're building a manufacturing facility that is also going to provide a platform for apprenticeships, because we must move away from just giving certificates and no skills. So the apprenticeship aspect will make engineers and technicians ready for the world of work. I thank you very much for attention.
A presentation that has the history of Industrial Revolution, please delete those slides. We've had 3 people talk to us about the history of Industrial Revolution. Let's go forward. We are now here. Not so. Hopefully that will help us catch on some time. My next is sincere apologies for pronouncing your name in a manner that is not, I've been tutored. So it is His Excellency Julius Maada Bio. I always have the consolation that if I asked any of you to pronounce my surname, it would be a different story. So that gives me consolation that surnames, African names are very interesting. So I hope I'm forgiven. We now go into the formalities, and allow me to invite Kwame to come and speak to us. But those of us who are social media savvy, Kwame, you can come. We are using the hashtag, the Africa Blockchain, hashtag Africa Blockchain UG19, or hashtag Africa 4IR. Africa 4IR. If you have a lot to say, use the short version. If you don't have much, use the long version. It will cover your characters. So over to you, Kwame.
Thank you. Can I talk about the history of the fourth industrial revolution?
How long is the presentation?
Thank you, Michael.
A pleasure.
Your Excellency, President Julius Maada Bio, the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, the Right Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda, Prime Minister Emeritus, the Right Honorable Amama Mbabazi, Cabinet Ministers from both Uganda and Sierra Leone, various dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, in your various capacities. I welcome you to Uganda. I welcome you to the Africa Blockchain Conference, and I welcome you to a major event that is shaking the African continent. I'd like to take a few minutes to give context of why we are here. My name is Kwame Rugunda, and I chair the organizing committee of this Africa Blockchain Conference. Last year when we gathered together, about 800 people from about 30 countries around the world came into this place and were able to distill what blockchain actually means and translate it into the context of our African economies in terms of what it means for agriculture, for health, for education, and so on. Like Michael was mentioning earlier, the initial understanding of blockchain was primarily around cryptocurrencies. But the conference was able to enable us make more sense of what it is. Now, that was last year. And it was very successful. It was successful in terms primarily of the impact that it was able to have. And I'll highlight three things that I mentioned earlier, but I'll just recap. The first is that as a result of last year's conference, our own central bank, our Capital Markets Authority, has since set up draft crypto asset regulations. This is also critical because those of us in the private sector are running ahead with innovation. But those in the regulation space have a responsibility to make sure that innovation, as important as it is, they have a duty to as well ensure that society is protected. So our Capital Markets Authority has gone ahead to do that. And thirdly, coordinated under our Ministry of ICT, Uganda has since set up a national task force on the fourth industrial revolution. This is extremely significant. It's very significant because this concept of the fourth industrial revolution is being discussed world over. It's on various agendas globally, but in Africa, we have not yet taken time to distill what it means, and more so to domesticate it, such that it is relevant for us. And more importantly, for this conference, for us in Africa to ensure that we can leverage the capabilities of the fourth industrial revolution to allow a quantum leap. This concept that we've been speaking about of leapfrogging is actually made possible by the opportunities of the fourth industrial revolution. And so we want to ensure that we can be able to do so. And those are some of the various significant outcomes of last year's conference. This year, we hope to build on the success that we had. And we are working together with a series of partners which will be enumerated over the next 24 and 48 hours. A group of people who we are working with to create an Africa 4.0 initiative, an effort that will actually go into the substance and the detail of preparing Africa for the fourth industrial revolution. So that is where we came from, where we are, and where we are going. Because we are convinced that technology, like many other factors, or rather unlike many other factors, has the unique capacity to enable Africa leapfrog. And we want to make sure that we can use these events and the value that can come out of them to nudge the systems in that direction. It is a delight for us to have here today the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone. As many of you may know, this is where we clap. As many of you may know, just a few weeks ago, Sierra Leone appended its signature to ratify the Continental Free Trade Area. That was a very, very significant move, because by appending its signature, Africa has now become the world's largest free trade zone. This is, again, a very significant move. Now, what is the relevance of that here? The relevance of that here is that Africa, being the largest free trade zone, requires ultimately an underlying technology to power that free trade zone to be able to work. And Your Excellency and the rest of the delegates and audience here, those underlying technologies are the ones that we're going to be speaking about here today. Blockchain, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, robotics, big data, and so on. We want to make sure that those technologies that we're just talking about are not foreign concepts or things discussed by a small circle of techies. But the fact that we had Professor Kwesiga here a few minutes ago goes to show that even the seniors can be discussing these things. So we have a responsibility. Yes, Professor Kwesiga. Even our seniors and the younger people can be discussing these things. These are not only things for the young people, but we have a responsibility to ensure that we can all understand them and make sense of them and leverage what it is that they can do to enable us as a continent move forward. This event has been able to happen because of a series of sponsors and partners. And I'd really like to thank the Ministry of ICT for giving all the support that it has given to enable for this to happen. I'd as well quickly like to thank our series of partners: MTN, St. Augustine University, Stanbic Bank, APRM, that's the Africa Peer Review Mechanism, CIPLA, Financial Sector Deepening, Technobrain, UCC, I've seen representation here, Oracle, Binance, Konrad Adenauer, Huobi, Dracon, Dot Services, Flare, True IT, Bank of Uganda, GEMS Education, Capital Law Partners, DFCU, Orient Bank, IoT Trust, UNOC, Kampala Associated Advocates, Andela, Max Advocates, Flutterwave, Blue Hill, National Water, Standard Chartered Bank, RetroDrabbit, Pesabase. These have been the ones who have enabled us make this event happen. So I'd like to pay special recognition to them. And there's a series of others, and we just want to really express our gratitude on behalf of the organizers. Before I finish my introductory remarks, I think it's important to share something. Yesterday we got an email, a message from Hands-on Robotics. This is a group that organizes this robot called Sophia. And they mentioned to us that unfortunately Sophia is unable to join us in Uganda. And this is a great disappointment. It was a disappointment to us as organizers, but it's also a disappointment to the many who have come to experience Sophia. And they explained the reasons why, around health risks primarily. Not health of Sophia, by the way. Robots don't get flu and so on, which are some of the things that will be discussed later. But health risks around the things that they've been hearing on our nation. And that having been said, what we agreed with them is to be able to have Sophia come over at a later time, but also to be able to have a live session on the screen with Sophia tomorrow, in which she will be able to speak, and she will personally apologize whether she or it. She or it, yes, I'm still debating. Ethics is one of the things that we're going to be speaking about under artificial intelligence. So Sophia was not able to come, but we'll be giving an address tomorrow, and we'll speak about why she wasn't able to come. So I'm here to express that point on behalf of the organizing team. And I'd also like to thank a series of our other sponsors and partners, QubitX, Century Group, and various others who are seated here.